In 2016, California voted to legalize marijuana, so KPBS decided to check out and see how far we've come with the promises that we heard back then. So, Andrew, maybe you can start and tell us why KPBS decided to do this 5-part series.
Yeah, so it started really with a story idea that I had been working on for quite some time about how cannabis tax revenues are being spent in California. Once I gathered enough material to actually do that story, I talked about it with my editor, and he said, you know what, we're reaching this 2-year point of legalization, legal sales of marijuana, and so maybe we should be taking a bigger look at the entire promise of legalization and where we are with those promises either being fulfilled or not.
And you produced 2 stories for this 5-part series, and in one of them you focused on the equity program, which allows some groups to benefit from the legalization whereas they might not have otherwise. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so cannabis equity programs exist in a number of cities in California, and their goal is essentially to help disadvantaged communities, people who were harmed by the war on drugs or the criminalization of marijuana in the past, share in the profits from legalization, because now that it's legal and it's a for-profit industry, we're seeing a lot of wealth being created, and the folks who really pioneered the cannabis industry, who did a lot of that innovation and entrepreneurship and made the industry what it is today, were criminalized for it in the past, and now they're essentially being shut out of the market because it's a very expensive to start a cannabis business, and a lot of minority communities just don't have that capital, they don't have the connections, and so cannabis equity programs are trying to help those folks share in the profits from legalization. But as I talk about in my story, there are a lot of problems with these types of programs, and we're considering one in San Diego right now. It's got a lot of work to do though.
And Shalina, you produced 2 features for this series. One of them is based more on science, the other one is technology. Tell us about those.
Yeah, sure. So the basis behind the science feature really came out of discussions within the newsroom. We've been having this huge clinical trial with human beings on using marijuana for thousands of years. The oldest traces of marijuana date back 2,500 years to the mountains in Central Asia. And one question that we had on that is, what do we actually know about the science behind what we're consuming? And what was interesting as I was doing this reporting is that we actually don't know that much. And what I found out is that because of federal prohibitions and sort of anti-drug campaigns and restrictions on marijuana research, it's been really difficult to do research on the therapeutic benefits of medical marijuana. But for a long time, people have already been using it to relieve issues like pain and insomnia. And so, if you go and check out my feature, you'll see why that's happening. And the other feature I did was on the technology side of this. It's been 2 years since we've legalized the retail sale of marijuana, but law enforcement in the state are still having some trouble figuring out how to police it. The biggest question is, like with drunk driving, what do you do with drugged driving? People who are too high to be on the road, and surprisingly, there's still a lot of questions on how to deal with that.
And you can see Shalina's features and Andrew's features on our website, kpbs.org/pot. Thanks for joining us.